As a professional driver, you may have been operating under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's CSA program for some time. CSA, which stands for Compliance, Safety, Accountability, is a driver and carrier monitoring and evaluation system that's designed to identify and intervene with drivers and carriers who are not in compliance with safety regulations. Simply put, CSA is a data gathering and analysis approach that seeks to identify safety problems early so that they can be addressed before they lead to tragedies on the highway. The system relies on 4 components. The first is collecting data about your compliance on the road. Second is safety measurement, which involves analyzing that data using a process of valuing your violations and comparing the results to other drivers and carriers to determine scores. Third is safety evaluation, which is the comparison of scores to predetermined thresholds. And fourth, intervention, taking action where drivers and carriers are not performing up to safety standards. To make sure the comparisons that occur as part of the safety evaluation process are applied fairly, all safety-related violations are given numerical values, which are ultimately used to generate scores for both the carrier and the driver measurement systems. These scores, in turn, are used to trigger enforcement interventions, which can range from warning letters to placing a carrier out of business. In this program, we won't spend a lot of time talking about the mathematics behind the scores. What we'll cover here is how the data is gathered, what the FMCSA does with the data, and most importantly, the actions you can take to keep your scores low. At the heart of the CSA safety measurement process are 7 categories of safety-related behaviors called BASICs, which stands for Behavior, Analysis, and Safety Improvement Categories. Those are the 7 BASICs, and knowing what they are, how they're scored, and what those scores can mean to you and your carrier is what the rest of this program is about. Even if you don't remember all the details, this knowledge can help keep you and your carrier out of trouble with the FMCSA. It's important to know that the Unsafe Driving Basic is one of the standalone basics that are part of CSA. The standalone designation is given to the basics that the FMCSA considers most associated with crash. Practice defensive driving. Keep yourself fresh and alert to prevent poor driving decisions. The other standalone basic is Hours of Service Compliance. It's standalone because the FMCSA has determined that driving while fatigued is directly related to crash causation. Also bear in mind that the number of time-weighted driver inspections the carrier and driver have undergone is used in scoring the Hours of Service Compliance Basic. For this reason, it's beneficial to accumulate good driver inspections, that is, inspections. An effective tracking system to identify driver and supervisor compliance is key to maintaining a low Hours of Service Compliance Basic score. When problems are identified, carriers... Contrary to what you might assume about the name of this basic, driver fitness does not refer to the physical fitness of drivers. It might be more appropriately called the Driver Qualifications Basic, verifying each driver's training, offering refresher training, and verifying licenses and endorsements in a driver qualifications file will help keep unqualified drivers off the road. A best practice examples of violations placed in the Controlled Substances and Alcohol Basic include operating under the influence, possession of drugs, or to avoid on-the-road problems in this area. Your carrier may choose to establish and enforce policies that are stricter than the regulations mandate. For example, proper vehicle maintenance is paramount to safety, and some vehicle maintenance issues have considerable bearing on crash causation. This means that severity weights can be high for certain vehicle maintenance violations. Inspections should include a pre-trip inspection at the beginning of the day, a walk-around inspection anytime the vehicle is parked, and a post-trip inspection, including completion of a driver vehicle inspection report. It's important to note that under the current system, all crashes are recorded. It doesn't matter who was at fault. If you're involved in a crash while operating a CMV, even as a victim, that crash will become part of the SMS. You need to drive defensively, operate within the traffic rules and regulations, and anticipate the actions of other drivers on the road to prevent your involvement. We've described the 7 basics. We've talked about the kinds of violations that fall under each basic, and we've given you a general overview of the scoring process. Now we'll talk a bit more about scoring, and then we'll discuss how these basic scores work within the rest of the compliance safety accountability system. For carriers, the comparison process starts by dividing carriers into safety event groups, or peer groups, based on the number of violations, inspections, or crashes the carrier has had in the last. When a carrier's score for one or more of the 7 basics exceeds the threshold that the FMCSA has established for intervention, the carrier involved may be subject to a variety of actions designed to address specific and documented safety issues. Carrier interventions can be triggered by exceeding the threshold scores in one or more basics, demonstrating a high crash rate, involvement in a fatal. In fact, drivers can also be the subject of interventions when their carriers are examined. While the FMCSA is investigating the carrier, all of the carrier's driver's CSA scores are checked. And this is when individual drivers may end up warned or... Second, you cannot escape past violations or high basic scores by simply changing jobs. Even though violations are recorded for both carriers and drivers, changing carriers does not result in a fresh start. We've covered a lot of information on the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's CSA program, and you may feel a bit overwhelmed. So, let me give you 3 important takeaways from this video. 1. If you already know and consistently comply with the regulations, what we've talked about when it comes to your basic scores in the CSA program, you are literally in the driver's seat. By striving for roadside inspections that result in no violations, you can actively control your own and your carrier's scores. The FMCSA's Compliance Safety Accountability Program gives everyone in the industry, both carriers and drivers, the opportunity to have their performance compared to the performance of their peers and to improve their safety-related behaviors so we can all be safer on the road.